Welcome to Daily Verse Devotion. If you're here, it's not by accident. Pause. Breathe. What you're about to hear isn't noise. It's a reminder from heaven itself. Some messages aren't meant for everyone. They aren't for those scrolling past, halfway listening, halfway believing. They're for the one whose silence isn't emptiness, but weight. You felt it, haven't you? In the middle of laughter, you still sense something deeper. While others blend in, you carry something that won't let you disappear. Have you ever asked, why can't I just be normal like them? Let's name it for what it is. You're not broken, you're not dramatic. You've been branded by heaven. Before anyone knew your name, the spirit realm already did. And it didn't just record your steps. It whispered, "This one looks like him." You may not part oceans or preach to crowds, but when you speak, truth stirs. When you walk in, tension shifts. When you weep, heaven watches. This isn't about imitation. It's not theater. It's nature. You were shaped to carry something sacred. One man once saw light burst through prison bars just by worshiping at midnight. No stage, no mic, just raw sound and real presence. Could it be what you carry is more dangerous to darkness than you realize? And if you're still listening now, maybe you were meant to hear this. So before we begin, let me ask again. Not who you are, but whose you are. If something in you stirred, if this already feels like home, take a moment to like this message, share it with the one who needs reminding, and subscribe so you don't miss the next time heaven speaks again. Let's begin. Understanding the nature of divine power. You were never designed to be ordinary, not built for comfort, not meant to drift through life unnoticed. Because something about you carries weight, not just in how you speak, but in how your spirit shifts the atmosphere even before you open your mouth. Let's be clear. You are not Jesus. You weren't nailed to a cross, but you were formed to mirror the one who was. The pattern wasn't random. He is the firstborn among many. That's what Romans chapter 8, verse 29 quietly tells us. Not a solo figure in glory, but the beginning of a lineage. So if he was the first, who are the rest? He walked in love that didn't need applause. He bled in silence, not under spotlights. And now, his nature continues in you. You were not designed for shallow places. You've been marked for depth. Depth that stretches, that strains, that sometimes feels like it might tear you apart. Here's a question worth asking. If you really carry divine nature, why does it so often feel like the weight is too much? Because pressure always surrounds power. That's not punishment. That's preparation. Before Jesus ever opened a blind eye, he fasted in heat-stricken deserts. Before he turned water into wine, he turned down every temptation hell could offer. And let's not forget Gethsemane, where he sweat like blood beneath a moonless sky. Silence pressing from heaven, shadows crowding in. Even the light of the torches that came for him must have felt cold. You've been wondering why your path feels narrow, why solitude finds you more than applause. But oil doesn't pour until the olive is crushed. And heaven never trusts untested hands. You, chosen one, you've been tested. You've felt it in rooms full of noise, that pull towards solitude. You've walked away from opportunities that glittered because your spirit whispered, "Not here." That's divine tension. That's what obedience sounds like. And it often doesn't shout, it whispers. There's a reason the world can't quite figure you out. You're not running on logic. You're responding to light, that unspoken light, glowing in the deep corners of your soul. It doesn't flicker, it exposes. Stephen knew it. As stones flew and blood fell, Scripture says his face shone like an angel's. He didn't defend himself. He simply looked upward. Even in death, glory refused to dim. Have you ever wondered, what might God reveal in you if you stopped just surviving and simply started to shine? That glow you feel inside, it isn't pride. It's presence. It's the weight of glory pressing from the inside out. And it humbles more than it exalts. You're not called to be impressive. You're called to be surrendered. Because surrender is where real power grows. Power isn't always in the thunder. It's in saying yes when it costs. It's in standing still when fear screams run. It's in blessing those who betray and carrying burdens no one sees. Think about this. The greatest acts of obedience usually happen in rooms where no one's watching. It's not the miracle in public. It's the sacrifice in private. It's waking up at 3 a.m. just to pray for someone who'll never know. It's biting your tongue when your flesh wants to speak. It's choosing to serve when you're the one who's tired. Joseph still interpreted dreams while in prison. He still spoke hope behind bars. He didn't wait for the throne to become faithful. And you don't have to wait to walk in your calling either. All of it. The silence, the crushing, the private obedience. It's been building something in you. Not just strength, but spiritual capacity. God's not searching for spiritual celebrities. He's looking for living altars. So when the weight feels unbearable, remember, it's not the sign of failure. It's the sign of formation. Because power doesn't come after applause. It comes after the pressing. And you were made to carry it well. Signs that you carry Jesus' divine nature. Not all power looks like lightning. Some of it looks like tears, falling for people who'll never know your name. You've wept for strangers, felt their weight in rooms where no one else noticed. You've seen fake smiles and sensed what was hiding behind them. That's not intuition. It's inheritance. When Jesus stood near the tomb of Lazarus, he didn't just command resurrection, he cried. Because compassion isn't weakness. It's proof that heaven is alive inside you. Have you ever wondered why your heart breaks so easily? Why you carry grief that doesn't belong to you? You're not unstable. You're sensitive to the spiritual. And when divine nature lives inside a human vessel, the pain of others no longer feels distant. You've prayed for people who mocked you, blessed the very ones who betrayed you. You've walked away from arguments you could have won and chose silence instead of revenge. That's not self-control alone. That's Jesus in you. There's something sacred about how you see. You don't just notice details. You perceive direction. You sense shifts in the atmosphere before anyone says a word. Sometimes it feels like too much. Your spirit gets stirred at odd hours. You wake up thinking of someone you haven't seen in years. You walk into a building and feel heavy without explanation. You cry without knowing who you're crying for. And that makes you wonder, am I just emotional, or is this spiritual weight I'm carrying? Look at Elisha. He could hear enemy whispers in their bedroom, but his servant Gehazi, he saw nothing until God opened his eyes. Discernment isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it sounds like a still voice saying, "Pray now." You've walked through storms without falling apart. Not because they weren't real, but because peace inside you was stronger than chaos around you. Jesus slept through the storm not because he didn't care, but because his spirit was anchored. And now, so is yours. You've endured betrayal. Not once, but often. You've loved hard and been left empty. Trusted people who used your loyalty. And somehow, you're still kind. That's divine. You've gone through seasons of silence, where God felt absent and the enemy felt loud. But you didn't stop praying. Didn't walk away. Didn't curse what you couldn't see. That kind of faith doesn't come from feelings. It comes from being sustained by something deeper than emotion. Let me ask you something. When people are near you, why do they feel seen, even when you say nothing? That's not charisma. It's Christ. There's something about your presence that makes hidden things tremble. You've noticed how some people are drawn to you, while others shift uncomfortably. You don't have to say a word. Your authenticity alone exposes what's false. That's not confrontation. That's conviction. You've caught yourself hearing things before they happen, picking up patterns, dreams that felt too real to dismiss, prayers that seemed random until they became timely. It's not anxiety. It's alignment. You felt divine nudges to leave early, to stay behind, to turn around mid-sentence, to pause when you could have pushed forward. Your instincts are spirit-led. Your steps are divinely timed. And your story, it's still being written with heaven's ink. So next time you doubt whether God is working in you, remember this. It's not just what you say, it's what you sense. It's what you carry. It's how you move with invisible wisdom. The greatest evidence that Jesus lives in you isn't how loud you worship. It's how quietly you love, how deeply you see, how gently you hold the burdens of others without demanding anything in return. That is power. And it looks like you, living the calling. There's something different about your rhythm. It doesn't move with the world's beat. While others chase what shines, you find yourself pulled into quiet places. And it's not just personality, it's purpose. You pray when no one's watching. You cry over things you can't explain. You fast without broadcasting it. And still, the fire in you won't go out. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because your spirit knows something deeper is happening beneath the surface. Let's be honest. Your life rarely feels predictable. You try to rest, and the burden comes. You try to stay quiet, but God places a name on your heart. You've lost count of the times. You've whispered prayers for people who didn't even know you were listening. This isn't religion. It's response. A response to the voice that speaks not in thunder, but in the gentle knock at midnight. Have you ever asked yourself, why can't I just be normal? Why does my soul carry weight even when life looks calm? Because your calling doesn't clock in and out. It doesn't take holidays. It shows up in the grocery store aisle, in the middle of someone else's breakdown, or during a walk that suddenly becomes an intercession. There are moments you feel stirred, but not by emotion, by spirit. Like Hannah in the temple, mouth moving, heart breaking, groaning in a language no man could understand. Even the priest thought she was drunk. But heaven heard every soundless word. That's you. You speak in tongues no one taught you. You groan in places words can't reach. And what feels strange to others feels sacred to you. Because you've tasted what happens when the Spirit prays through your flesh. And once you've known that weight, you can't go back to shallow. You've seen patterns in dreams, heard confirmations in whispers, received symbols that echoed long after the vision faded. And though you've told no one, you've written them down. Not because you're superstitious, but because you know revelation is a responsibility. Sometimes these signs come uninvited. You weren't looking for them, but they found you, and deep down, you knew they weren't coincidence. Let me ask you something. What if the interruptions in your life aren't interruptions at all, but divine appointments in disguise? You've been the person who stayed in the room when everyone else left. You've noticed the one no one speaks to. You've sat next to the rejected, not because it's comfortable, but because something in you feels drawn there. That's not pity, that's Christ. Loving people who hurt you hasn't made you weak. It's made you real. You've forgiven when it didn't make sense. You've shown kindness without guarantee, and still your heart breaks again and again. But you haven't shut it off. You haven't grown cold. You've stayed soft in a world that rewards hardness. That's the call working in you. Not loud, not glamorous, but constant. And sometimes that call gets heavy. You wonder if anyone sees the price you pay, if anyone understands the depth you carry. But the call was never meant to be admired. It was meant to be answered. And you've been answering it with every whispered prayer, every inconvenient act of love, every moment you said yes without applause. You didn't choose this life, but it chose you. And your spirit said yes before your mind even caught up. You are not unstable. You are awake. You're not intense. You're in tune. Heaven placed a flame in you that won't burn out in darkness. And you've chosen to keep it burning. From hidden to released. There was a season when God kept you behind the curtain, not because you weren't ready to shine, but because you weren't ready to carry the weight. Hiddenness wasn't punishment. It was preparation. And only those who've been in the shadows know how to handle the spotlight without burning. Some people thought you were being left behind. Others said your time had passed. But what they didn't see were the nights you cried without sound, the fasts no one knew about, the scriptures you whispered, when fear tried to crush your lungs. You were being built, stone by stone, in silence. God wasn't ignoring you. He was investing in you. Because the next season wouldn't require talent. It would require depth. Have you ever felt overlooked? Not by man, but by heaven. As if everyone around you was being elevated while you stayed buried? It wasn't delay. It was design. You weren't being shelved. You were being sealed. God hides what he deems holy. Moses was hidden for 40 years. David was anointed but sent back to the fields. Jesus waited 30 years before revealing who he was. So why would your process be any shorter? Let that settle in. Now the shift is here. The wind has changed. God is lifting the veil. Not so people can admire you, but so they can encounter him through you. You've been refined by fire, and what remains is usable, durable, dependable. This isn't about elevation for applause. It's about exposure for assignment. You no longer just reflect Jesus. You carry him. His weight sits on your words. His breath lives in your timing. His fragrance lingers after you've left the room. Have you noticed the change? People come to you with burdens. They open up without knowing why. You speak a sentence, and hearts shift. You pray quietly, and the atmosphere moves. This isn't your charisma. It's your consecration. Let me ask you this. What have you been carrying that no one sees? What secret assignments have you fulfilled? With no recognition, no title, no reward. Heaven saw them all, and heaven has kept receipts. Now you're not being promoted. You're being revealed, like a scroll unsealed, like a lamp uncovered, like a voice rising from the wilderness, not asking for permission, just declaring truth. Feel the warmth in your chest? That's the fire of readiness. The season of concealment is over. You are not the same person you were when you entered that cave. You are sharper, quieter in noise, louder in spirit. You're not here to perform. You're here to carry. Not opinions, not platforms, presence. You've learned to sit with silence until it speaks, to embrace delay without turning bitter, to serve when no one claps. That's why the oil flows now. Let me ask again. Do you understand that you're not being sent out to prove something? You're being released to love someone. The miracles won't look like stages and smoke. They'll look like healing eyes, restored marriages, words in due season. You'll bring peace into chaos without ever raising your voice. And you'll do it, not as a performer, but as a vessel. You're not here to gather followers. You're here to release carriers. You're not here to build a name. You're here to make His known. From hidden to released, from refinement to revelation, from surviving to sending. Walk steady now. The light is not your enemy. It's your confirmation. How to steward divine power. Power is not hard to receive, but power is easy to waste. God doesn't just look for vessels. He looks for stewards. And those who carry divine authority must learn to carry it with trembling. You've been given something sacred. Not just a calling, not just gifts, but access, direct, holy, unfiltered access to the heartbeat of heaven. So how do you hold it? How do you keep it from slipping through your hands unnoticed? The answer starts here. Stay close. Intimacy with God isn't a bonus. It's breath. Prayer isn't your spiritual hobby. It's your lifeline. Without it, you suffocate. And I'm not talking about performance prayer. Not the loud, wordy kind that aims to impress. I mean the kind whispered in traffic. The kind muttered under tears. The kind where you say nothing and still feel known. When was the last time your silence said more to God than your sentences? Sometimes presence matters more than articulation. Worship, too, is not a routine. It's where your strength is renewed. It's where your heart softens again. It's not music. It's surrender. When your thoughts feel scattered and your direction feels foggy, don't strategize first. Worship first. There is a scent in worship that draws heaven near. Sometimes the room shifts. Sometimes nothing shifts outside, but everything shifts inside. That's still worship. Now listen, pride will try to sneak in, subtly, disguised as confidence, disguised as calling. But pride is a leak in the oil. It drains authority faster than failure ever could. Jesus didn't rise by climbing. He rose by kneeling. The towel came before the crown. Don't forget that. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever noticed how the loudest voices often carry the least weight? It's not the showy ones who move heaven. It's the surrendered ones. Next, protect your peace. You're not responsible to let every person have access to your spirit. Some people come as assignments. Others come as distractions. And a few come simply to drain what took you years to carry. Peace isn't passivity. It's protection. Think of Jesus sleeping through the storm. The wind howled. The boat rocked. The water crashed. But inside, calm. Peace didn't depend on silence. It depended on depth. What noise have you allowed to enter your soul that needs to be silenced again? Fasting will help with that. Not as a punishment, but as clarity. Fasting isn't about starvation. It's about separation from distraction, from dullness, from spiritual noise. Try setting aside your phone before your plate. You'll hear more from heaven. Fasting sharpens your senses. You begin to hear the whisper behind the noise. You begin to feel when something shifts in the spirit even before it shows in the natural. That's not discipline. That's discernment. And don't walk this out alone. Who surrounds you matters. Your fire won't last long if you spend all your time around the lukewarm. The upper room wasn't filled with thousands. It was filled with those who waited, who burned, who believed. Ask yourself, do the people closest to me challenge my spirit or comfort my compromise? Because proximity shapes perspective. And in this hour, you can't afford to walk with people who don't carry the same flame. You are not waiting for revival. You are what God wants to revive through. You are not hoping for a move. You are the move. When you walk into a space and joy rises, peace settles, demons tremble, revival is there. When your obedience shifts the atmosphere, revival is happening. You carry more than words. You carry presence. And the weight of it will grow heavier in the days to come. But if you stay low, stay intimate, stay set apart, you won't just manage the power, you'll multiply it. You are the evidence of Christ on earth. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to stand apart, not for arrogance, not for applause, but for assignment. Heaven marked you long before earth recognized you. There was a seal on your spirit before you learned to speak. You carry something older than time, something weightier than mere opinion. This isn't just a calling, it's a commissioning. Every time you forgive when it hurts, every time you speak life instead of bitterness, you declare Christ is alive in the earth. This world doesn't just need preachers. It needs proof. And you are that proof. Let me ask you something. Have you been shrinking to fit spaces God designed you to expand? You don't need to apologize for the weight you carry. You don't need to explain why your presence disrupts atmospheres. Jesus didn't walk around trying to blend in. He walked in full authority, full love, full truth. And you're not a carbon copy. You're a spiritual echo. You move with His rhythm. You speak with His heart. You stand in rooms as if heaven walked in with you, because it did. Some won't understand it. They'll try to reduce you to something safer, smaller, more manageable. But your identity is not up for debate. You weren't sent to make others comfortable. You were sent to make Christ visible. I know there are days you feel tired, when obedience costs more than expected, when loneliness creeps into the spaces where boldness once lived. But pause here. Listen. Feel that quiet stillness behind your ribs? That's the presence. That's Him. The same one who stood in fire with the three. The same one who wept in Gethsemane. The same one who whispered to Elijah in a cave. He walks with you. He speaks through you. He touches lives because you said yes. You've been through the refining. You've been through the obscurity. You've faced warfare, silence, misunderstanding. And still you remain. Why? Because heaven trusts you. And when heaven trusts someone, it assigns angels to walk beside them. You've been equipped, not with titles, but with truth. Not with followers, but with fruit. Not with fame, but with fire. Let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to prove your worth and just started living from it? You're not waiting for permission. You've already been released. So speak with boldness. Love with courage. Walk into rooms knowing that Christ in you is enough. You are not ordinary. You are not optional. You are essential. You are not perfect, but you're positioned. And heaven's not looking for flawless. It's looking for faithful. Let your life be the canvas where God paints redemption. Let your steps echo the footsteps of Jesus. You are not just following Christ. You are carrying Him. This is your season to walk unashamed, to live unhidden, to love without limits, to shine without apology. The world doesn't need a new version of you. It needs the real one, the one God breathed into, the one God refined, the one God now sends.